Welcome. Today I'm going to talk about my experiments with MetaQuest and kind of defining our community standards for the group. If people are interested in following along, I suggest you can buy a Quest headset. I have the MetaQuest 2 I work with. That's about $300, and the MetaQuest Pro is a little bit more expensive, but whatever hardware you can get your hands on would be, this should work for you. So I'm going to go through a video here, I think like 5 or 6 segments where I explore things in that world, introduce some tools, and then we'll let our imagination run wild. And so we can develop our own applications, of course, but I want to go through some of the workplace tools that we might use. I have another set of videos on our YouTube channel, one of them being a presentation or the beginnings of like how to create presentations in virtual reality in the MetaQuest headset, for example. I've done a presentation in there, and I'm going to do another video on how to set up that kind of presentation. In general, there are a lot of moving parts here, so don't get discouraged. You can experiment and see what works for you. So this first clip will be the entry portal into MetaQuest. So when you turn on your headset, you end up in a place in sort of a lobby of a waiting room of some type. There are different ones to choose from, and that's where you have a menu that comes up that allows you to choose which app you want to go to. So you can go to your installed apps, or you can go to a set of apps that you can buy or watch things on YouTube in 3 dimensions, 3D videos or whatever. So here's the first clip. Okay, in that clip we saw the entry lobby and the menu, and I was manipulating the menu. The next clip is going to be your controllers. So your controllers are these handheld devices with a ring around the edge. The ring is for hand tracking, so you can track your hands using the controllers and you can manipulate the scene. In some applications, you can have a menu pop up on your left hand, so your controllers are basically like your hands. You can also do hand tracking where your hand shows up in the environment. You want to make sure you have a lot of ambient light. I have a ring lamp and a regular lamp here, and so you can do that, and you can explore these apps. Sometimes there's a menu, like I said, that comes up on one hand or another. Sometimes you can use your controller to control different apps. Sometimes if you're moving around, it does have an effect. So it just depends on what the application is. So this is an introduction to using the controllers to get into Meta Horizon Workrooms, which is a workspace that we might use for, you can use it for personal work, you can invite people. Okay, so in that clip you saw the controllers. So these are examples of hand controllers. There's a trigger here. There are buttons on the sort of the front here. It's hard to see with this background. And then you have these rings, and these rings are part of the hand tracking. So your hand gets tracked in space, and then that gets registered in the program. So our next part here is where we set up a screen capture in an office space in Meta Horizon Workrooms, and we project it to a board. So you saw that we had our workspace, we have a desk, we have to actually, which is not in the video, you have to define a desk space. So your workroom, you're usually working on a desk, you would draw your desk out and then define that, and then you define your guardian, which is your area in which you will be operating your hands. So your hands are tracked in that space. So everything is registered spatially, and then that's how the program knows where you are. All right, so in that video, we saw that we had a board that we took our laptop screen, we projected it into the environment, and then we projected it onto a working board or a working screen. And so that's one way to do this, is to have a working screen. Meta Horizon Workrooms also has like a whiteboard, but you take your controller and you draw like this with this end. So you draw on the board. And so there are different ways to interact. There are other applications we can use for this too. One of the videos in our YouTube channel, I used Big Screen VR, which offers a number of environments where you can project things onto a screen. So in that video, I'm giving a presentation in a theater. So one of the things you can do is you could stand in front of the screen, but that's often not that kind of view of your avatar is not often you're not able to do that. You'd have to have another person to record or screen cap for you. But in that video, I was sitting in a first person view of the screen, and then I looked around the theater when I was giving an example. So there are different, theatrical devices you can use to make your presentation work and leverage what VR can offer. So we saw that example of the board. There's an application called Immersed, which allows you to do 3 screens or even more, where you can project these screens out into the virtual environment and interact with them, put your different materials on the screens from different computers. So this is a lot like a multi-monitor setup in an office. One of the advantages of this, of course, is if you don't have multi-screens, you can use them in virtual reality. You can configure a keyboard, you can configure a mouse. I use a Magic mouse or a Magic keyboard and a Magic mouse. So this is the Magic keyboard, and this has easy connectivity to um, what we see in the environment. So we can actually see the keyboard in the environment. It shows up and it tracks. So when you hit, like say the R, the T, or the E, that actually comes out on the screen. It comes through the computer, and then that wireless connection between your computer and the headset is maintained, and so it's more or less instantaneous. There can be some lag depending on your local connectivity, depending on the program and what how you have it configured. So, like I said, don't get discouraged. These things are not perfect by any means, but that's okay. That's okay. Um, so this next scene will be surfing the web and exploring visualizations in YouTube. So I have a YouTube video. I think I'm exploring our YouTube channel, and then I cut to a scene where we're looking at hyperbolic spaces visualized on YouTube. So there's this video where you say we're exploring a hyperbolic space in 2 dimensions. So it's a 2-dimensional video, and you're just kind of exploring this space. You're moving through it, and it kind of gives you the visual aspect of it. Now, putting this in virtual reality doesn't necessarily help you see the dimensional part, because you would need to have additional visual cues for that. But it does give you that immersive feeling, and you can, this is just like a demo. You could do a lot of things with this. We could also move towards 360 videos, and YouTube hosts a large number of 360 videos. You can access those through the MetaQuest portal, or you can just go to YouTube in a browser, which I'll show you in a bit how to do that. And then, those are, of course, videos that are shot where they shoot a 360 view around the camera person. So the camera person has a bunch of cameras pointing in different directions, and you're getting a 360-degree panoramic view. And then in the video, you can just move around in that space. Okay, this final clip shows. So in one of the previous clips, I showed the controller and how to manipulate the menu. In this one, I've set up the hands. So your hands actually can be tracked, where you have to do, like, it's in the experimental settings part of the Meta Quest settings panel. So you go to the settings, you set up experimental settings, track hands, and then you have to calibrate it a little bit, and then you can manipulate things with your hands, like the menu. And I show an example of how to do that with the menu. Then we go into a program called Wolvik, and Wolvik is a web browser for virtual reality. And so Wolvik actually comes from the Mozilla browser that they built uh, for the Meta, I think for the Oculus Quest and the Oculus Rift, and then they abandoned that version, the Mozilla browser that they used for that, and then that project was forked, and then someone developed Wolvik on top of that. So Wolvik has a Mozilla lineage. It's a perfectly stable browser. There's a MetaQuest browser, which I don't show, which is the default browser, but Wolvik actually offers a nice environment that you can go into, and then there's a screen, as you'll see, and then you have demos that you can play with. And one of the demos that we'll show at the end is this Access Mars demo, which is where you're laying on the surface of Mars and you can move around the surface and get information about different parts of the surface. And this is based on the probes that have gone to Mars. So enjoy. All right, that's all for this video. Thank you for your attention.